What's up, dedicated Dragon Ball denizens? I'm Ryan, and we're here for another special edition of the Hawks Dragon Ball Nest. I'm putting together this series as we're leading up to the regionals in the US and probably around the world, for those of you playing around the world, so that I could give you some of the knowledge that I have learned during my time getting my master's degree in sport and performance psychology. So this time we're going into part 2 of our focus and concentration lesson per se, and we're going to get into distractions and some of the ways that we can recognize when we're being distracted, when we're experiencing distractions, and then how we can use keywords to get us back on track and put our attention where it needs to be, which is on the game, performing at our best. Let's start off with a quick review from last time. Make sure you check out the entire video on this playlist so that you can really get the in-depth version of this. It is still rather short compared to a lot of my other content, but we talked about our attention having a limited capacity, and in order to perform at our peak, we need to utilize all of that onto our task at hand, which in our case is going to be in our match. Playing our match, making sure that we are getting it fully on Dragon Ball Fusion World and nothing but that, and really on exactly what's happening in the here and now in that. And we can actually hone our attention so that we can block out distractions that rob us of our attentional capacity. There are some other just exercises that we can do, like the number grid, that can help us focus for more intense periods of time, focus more intensely for longer periods of time. Right, so we can really do that, and we also need to know that there are other types of focus. Focus is like a flashlight. We can focus it away from us externally, or we can focus it in towards us, so internally. That's more of our thoughts. We can also make that light very narrow, or we can make it wide. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video, which is going to be distraction, which is the enemy of focus. Distractions are all around us, especially during these big, large tournaments, right? So thinking about the types of attention from earlier, we can categorize all of our distractions that we're experiencing in those same types of things. Maybe it's noise around you. Maybe it is a wide thing. It's all of that noise that's going to be a wide focus of attention. Maybe it's very narrow. We've got our friend that we've maybe only met online. We've only talked to them in Discord, and they're trying to get your attention and get you over. If it's the wrong time, that can be a distraction. Maybe it's internal too. It's internal thoughts. Man, there's a lot of people here. I don't know if I belong. Oh, I'm second guessing my deck. I see this guy over there, a very narrow attention. He's got Jiren. I'm bad into Jiren. We want to think about those. Those are all distractions that are taking us away from our task at hand. If you're between matches, maybe it's not as bad, but if you're seeing these things happen during your match, it can be devastating sometimes. And even before our match, if we're trying to get ourselves into a good pre-performance routine, those can be distractions as well. So as I mentioned, think about this, and we want to kind of prime ourselves. Don't wait until the day of the regionals to do this. If you've been to one before, think back to them. Even start thinking about what are some general things that distract us from just at our locals, maybe even online when we're playing on the client. Maybe you've never been to a locals because they don't really have them in your area. So you want to start priming, and you also might want to think about some distractions that could come up. So you can use this, get yourself a little chart similar to this, just write one out on a piece of paper and try to categorize those distractions in the same manner of thinking about what we actually do want to focus on. And you want to kind of get those side by side. So I've got something here that's just some examples, of course not exhaustive, and some of them may not apply to you, but here's a little bit of these distractions that you can get. Internal distractions of things like, will I win this match? Our attention is on the match, but when we're thinking about winning or losing the match, that's not something that you want to be thinking about now. You want to be thinking about those specific rote plays, what's on the board, things like that, not winning or losing during the match. That's what I call irrelevant stimuli. Other things that are obvious. I'm hungry. Man, maybe you rushed over to the venue and you didn't get to eat. Now you're hungry. Well, that's a distraction. You may want to do something about that before, but if you can't, we need ways to block out are that thoughts of being hungry and distracting us. Maybe you're also thinking, you're looking over there, but how's my friend doing in his matches? Thinking about that. That's internal. Could be external because we're also, if you're looking over at them, but maybe you don't even see them and we're kind of imagining them in your mind's eye. Distraction. External, maybe even seeing that, like, oh man, you get your opponent and they got this really cool alt art and you're thinking about, oh, that's a cool alt art, and then your mind starts wandering, oh, I wonder how much that costs. I'm gonna look it up on TCG player after this match, and then before you know it, your opponent's got this board in front of you and they're like, hey, you gonna combo? They're attacking you, and now you're kind of scrambling to catch up. That's a distraction. Maybe it's, hey, look, it's Ryan from YouTube over there. He taught me how to block out distract. Oh no, I'm distracted now, right? That's an external distraction. Or maybe too, you're going to encounter this, is like, man, this guy I'm playing against is so rude. Like, what's his deal? That could be part of his game. Y'all ain't gonna be the only ones to know mental skills coming in here. There is as much of a mental game to this as there is not. A lot of us are at locals and we know these people there, and we're kind of nice and polite, but you're going to encounter people who are just in it and they want to try to steamroll over you, not just with their deck, but with their personality. They want to intimidate you, scare you, be rude. So don't let that distract you. Don't let that get into your head, right? Okay, now we've got some broad and narrow distractions. And remember, internal, external, broad, narrow are parallels. If I can get myself right here, they're going to be crossing over. There's internal broad, internal narrow, external broad, external narrow. So some of these would go in both, right? So broad focus. If we're looking in here, we're playing some cards. I don't have any cards in front of me, but Pokemon. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, there's a lot of people in here. That's taking your focus away. We need a narrow focus of attention. Now we're going broad and we're looking at what's going on in other matches. It's really loud in here. That's going to be a big one for a lot of people. I'm sure I've actually never been to regional, so I'm just kind of assuming, but when there's that many people, you bet it's going to be loud in there. You need to figure out a way to block that out or not be able to deal with it. And then let's think about this. They're not always like bad things that you don't want to experience. Sometimes a broad thing is we're thinking back to how great our last match went, and we're not focusing on the match in front of us, right? It's very important to know that, yes, your last match went well, but if you're thinking about that during your match now, that's an irrelevant stimuli. That's a distractor. We don't need to be thinking about that. All right, now let's think about a little bit narrow thoughts, right? Do I even belong here? It's kind of narrow. It's an internal thought. I can't lose this match is also a very narrow thought. I can't lose. Okay, well, that's out of your control. How are you going to win this match? Also irrelevant to a certain extent, but really like what's in front of me now? You need to focus on that. And kind of similarly as my last match went well as broad, that last turn was so great for me. It's cool too. I'm a person as well. I'll admit I'll fall victim to things as I like doing, when you've got this really cool turn where we just made these plays that you love, like sometimes I'll be thinking about, oh man, that was sick right there. That was such a sick play. And then before you know it, your opponent just destroyed all that you did, and maybe you could have stopped it. Maybe you didn't plan out your hand, like as you're thinking about like your next move is like, okay, what are they potentially going to do next, and if they do, how do I defend that? Now you're going to be scrambling and you may misplay because you're thinking back to something that already happened, right? So let's kind of go through there. And now how are we going to really refocus after being distracted? Because it's going to happen. Look, all of these things are going to happen to you. It's okay. Now, how do we get back to it? So how are we going to get back to being focused on the relevant stimuli, right? There are many ways to do that. There's a lot of different strategies, but what I'm going to focus on in here, because it's a very simple one that everyone can easily use, is what it's called cue words. So these are words or phrases that are used when you realize you are distracted, when you need to lock in, as they say, right? So they help direct away from irrelevant stimuli back to relevant stimuli. In other words, they keep you focused on what's important. How to use cue words? The first step is awareness, right? And this is why I didn't just say, let's use cue words. I need you, or you need to, go back and make sure you're inventorying both things. From the first video where we're inventorying what we do focus on, what is important to focus on, which is our relevant cues. And then what do we get distracted by, which are irrelevant cues? Get two tables. We want those side by side. And then that's how you're building your awareness, right? The first step is awareness. We can't do anything without that. Once we realize this is what I want to focus on, this is what I don't, now we're ready to use cue words so that we are able to get us back to where we need to go. So let's look at what that may look like. Now here's just a simple table that I created that you can kind of try to use that. We've got a distractor and then a cue word. You could do it any way you like. You could write out all the distractors and then think about cue words, or you could go one by one. It's up to you, whatever it is. So choose some of those. Choose some of your biggest distractors and then think about maybe in that moment, like when do I experience the distractor? Make sure it's relevant to you, right? I'm going to give you some examples in a minute, but they may not be super relevant to you in terms of maybe the distractor is, but the keyword won't quite work for the situation that you're getting distracted. So these are all examples. If I were to be working with a client, I'd be talking to you one-on-one and we would be working through this a little bit more, but this is just a very general way of doing it, so you're going to have to do the work. But I'll at least give you some examples, right? So thinking about that, what are your distractors, and then what is something that is relevant, useful to you that you're going to use to get back on track? So this is how I might do it for myself as a fellow Fusion World player, right? So I've got a bunch of distractors up here and then keywords on there, right? I can't stop thinking about how bad my last match was. Sometimes you're going to start off and you just can't stop. That may be the exact thought in your mind, or maybe just that's the general thing. We're already in our next match. That match is done, but you're just so mad that you misplayed. And you can't stop. Oh, if I would have just comboed away, I could have taken that game. If I would have played this card instead of that, I could have taken that win. So we've got to stop. We've got to stop that negative feedback loop, because now what's it doing? It's taking your valuable attentional capacity. So we want to get that. How can we snap ourselves out? And that's what these cue words are. They want to be very short phrases, no more than 5 words. If you could get it down to 2, 3 words, even better. I've got a little bit more detail for context, right? But one of my favorite cue words in there is control what you can control. And it's not necessarily a word, it's more of a phrase, cue phrase maybe we should call it. But control what you can control. Can we control that last match anymore? No. So I'll tell myself that. What can I control even more specifically? Now we're thinking about that. What can I control in this moment? It's a relevant stimuli. I can control organizing my hand in a way that I know what I'm going to combo away, what I'm going to play. I'm going to be scanning the board, things like that. Those are things I can control. Okay? Distractor. If I win this match, I'm likely top 16. That's not going to help you win your match. Knowing that if you win, you get top 16, in a way, it can be motivating, but you cannot be thinking about that during the match. Focus on the board now. That might be what it is. Maybe even to simplify that further, what's the board? Where's the board? Stuff like that. Just something that's going to work for you, right? Then we've got another one, and I don't know why my quotation marks are backwards, but I'm not going to fix them right now. Another one, like I said earlier, it's so loud in here. It's so loud in here. And the more you think about how loud it is, the louder it's going to get. So let's get one of my favorite things. Lock in, buddy. That's what I'll tell myself. I put a little bit more nice right here, a little bit more laid back. Lock into the game. You tell yourself that. Whatever works for you. And to be honest, sometimes they're not cue words, but maybe you even put a tactile thing in there where you lock in and you slap your thigh. That's a good thing that can work. So getting that out, put our focus, and if you really observe yourself in some games that eventually that noise, as you start to tunnel vision onto the board, onto your playmat, really even think about even start zoning in. If we do get broad and we need to get narrow, then this is a time maybe we're even gonna lock into the art of your opponent's card that's attacking, or if you know that they're gonna attack and you're gonna combo a card, just lock in to whatever that art on that card. Okay, I know he's going to do this attack. It's really loud. I'm getting distracted. And it kind of hushes everything out. Now we're getting our vision went from this wide, so wide it can't even fit into my screen, to the small little piece on that card. And you're going to see that the noise gets a little bit less, right? All right, and then another thing there. My match went really well. My last match went really well. If you're coming into your next match and you're still thinking about it and like how sick it was that you got the win, and because it was a long game, everybody's around you and they went, oh, when you got that last thing out, doesn't matter anymore, okay? We're in a new match. Now is what matters. That's a good one for me. Now is what matters. That's another thing, like the good and the bad. You can't control your last match anymore because it's over. We need to focus on this one. And then from there, oh man, maybe you're facing somebody like some of these streamers in Discord, bunch of miscreants that I see in the Discord I'm active in. But you got to give it to them. They're great players, and I might think that, oh man, this guy was a great player. I don't know if I stand a chance against them. Should I just give it to them? Should I just concede? No, man. Tell yourself, I know my list. You worked hard on your list. You've tested your list. I know my list. They know theirs. They're a great player. So am I. Maybe I'm not great, but I at least know my list, okay? And this list is something that I'm confident in, and I think it could stand up to pretty much anyone, okay? Now you guys try one. Try one. Let me know in the comments. I'm curious. What's a distractor that you have? What's a cue word? Even if you need a little help in there too, throw in what that distractor is. I could try to help you get a cue word, okay? But let me know a distractor and then something that you do feel is at least a relevant stimuli, and I could help you work through getting a cue word in there or a cue phrase. Now, in summary here, we can train ourselves to have better control on what we focus on. So the way to do that initially is to practice becoming aware of what you're allowing yourself to attend to. And I will say allowing, take some ownership of that. At first, you may not have much ownership of it. You may not have much control of it. But when you start to become aware, you do start to gain that agency, and you do start to see, okay, I do allow myself to focus on that, or I can allow myself to focus on what is relevant and not what is irrelevant. And then get an inventory of both relevant and irrelevant and continue to update that. If you've got time between your matches and you really think that this is some work that you want to do, go ahead and continue to do it. Use those keywords, create some keywords, whether before, during, or after these regionals, and it's going to help you take your game to the next level. Well, I feel like we did some good work here today, y'all. You can tell how passionate I am about this. I hope that you can. Just as much, if not more, than about Dragon Ball Fusion, where I was getting animated here. And so I hope this helps you all out. I hope this is some useful stuff. Let me know in the comments. Some other topics that you might want to see. What's some issues that you have? I've got an outline of what the videos I'll be making, but if I got some requests, y'all, first comment wins. I'm going to switch it up and try to do something that's going to be helpful to you all as regionals are getting closer. And again, if these are something that's useful, I can continue to make these videos. I love doing this kind of content. I'd like to get it more dynamic at some point, but we've got some stuff going for you all. It's just a little test on that. If you like what you see, make sure you hit that subscribe button, please, so you can become part of the Hawk's Nest. We're a fabulous and fearless flock of folks who love to do what we love. We love to do it well. Let's get in there, and let's have those that are part of the Hawk's Nest. We're not very exclusive, but we could be exclusive. Let your opponent know, man, you beat me, man, and you were locked in. How'd you do it? The Hawk's Nest, man. We a crew out here. We a crew of the Hawk's Nest. So, anyway, I'll let you all go with that. Leave me a comment if you're not quite ready to fly yet. Just do that. We'll show up in an algorithm near you. But until then, we'll see you next time.